Good morning from Australia. This is Michelle King and Richard Burnell, and we have a special guest, Brad Anthonus, who is an accountant, and he's here to talk about tax. Richard's got a great presentation afterwards, and we welcome you all. And I'm just going to hand it over to Brad now to discuss some tax and present his presentation. So enjoy, everybody.
All right, no worries. Thank you very much, Michelle. It's good to be on. So I was contacted to do this webinar for everyone in the hopes that I can give you a better insight onto how it all works in Australia. Are you able to see this? I can't hear you.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah, we can see. Yeah.
No worries. So I'm a practicing accountant. I run a multi-million-dollar online business as well, and that's currently in 2 different countries. Okay, so just a quick disclaimer. I'm just going to go over the general, pretty much the general overview of capital gains tax legislation and the reporting requirements, the Australian Taxation Office. But my advice is not to be considered absolute, and should not rely on my advice in your own circumstances. And due to the extreme complexities of how it all works, I'm not able to go over every intricate detail in the very little time that I have available. So I'll just get that out of the way, and then so an introduction on what capital gains tax is. Capital gains tax it's what's known as a deferred tax. It was introduced on September 20, 1985. So prior to that, capital gains were not taxed because it's not the same thing as ordinary income. They've had various updates to it over the years, including the ability to only tax the real gains. In the 1980s, 1990s, we had an extreme amount of inflation, which the original goal was to only tax the real gains. As you can see, up to September 21, 1999, only the real gains were taxed. So the real gain being the nominal gain less the rate of inflation. After September 21, 1999, they introduced a discount method. So they basically came out and said, all right, well, we're no longer going to tax the inflation component of it. We're now going to give everyone just a 50% discount, assuming they've held it for more than 12 months. Superannuation funds have a 1/3 discount, not a 50% discount. And the companies can't use the discount method, only the indexation method. Although I'm not sure that the indexation method would be relevant to cryptocurrency, as most likely didn't exist before 1999. So section 102-5 subsection 1 is the central provision of the CGT regime. It includes the net capital gain in a taxpayer's assessable income. So after you've worked out the gain and applied all the discounts, the net capital gain is added on to the income for the financial year. So if you're
Baby, I'm coming to sit with Mama.
is,
Hello. You sleepy?
can you please
Did you
mute?
eat?
Who is that?
Tummy feels good? Come here and talk to me.
Who is that? Sorry,
That's
could you
right.
please mute? So the net capital gains are basically, they're all taxed the same way as all other income in Australia. I know that in other countries they tax it separately rather than just adding it onto the net income. But in Australia, it's all taxed the same as salary and wages, dividends, it's all taxed the same. And the idea behind that is so that people who are on a higher income will have a higher burden of tax than someone on a lower income. So it promotes an economic statistic called the Gini coefficient. So at the company level, there's usually a 30% tax rate on the company's profits in Australia. However, that can be reduced to 25% if there's certain conditions apply. Other other entity types, I won't go over in great detail, like superannuation funds, they're taxed at 15%. I won't go over those in detail, but we'll pretty much go over what an individual will be like. It's probably what's going to apply to most people here. Net capital losses, if you do have a loss in the financial year, that loss can be carried forward indefinitely and will only be able to be offset against future capital gain. So say, for example, you lost 10 grand on crypto, you can carry forward that loss into a future financial year, say 3 years down the track, you make 100 grand. Well, your 100 grand to be reduced by the $10,000 loss that you had incurred 3 years previously, and will obviously reduce the tax bill slightly. So there's 4 things that the CGT regime considers. That's Cgt Events, Cgt Assets that are subject to CGT, exemptions, rollovers, and the calculation of capital gain or loss. So I'll go over one by one what that pretty much all means. So there are 53 CGT events in total, grouped into 12 different categories. And I point out here that's hence the importance of dealing with a registered tax agent. There's quite a lot of different CGT events that can be discovered. So, for example, the most common one, which is an A1 tax event, that's if you were, let's say you held an investment property and you sold the house, and that would be classified as an A1 tax event. And most tax events are A1, but there's 53 which deals with things like, like if a right was obtained as a result of your actions, for example, which the Skyways, how those Skyways have structured their scheme, they would be probably a D1 or D2 event. So basically, it all just goes into each event describes how the circumstances which gave rise to the event and the time of the event, and a method of calculating the capital gain or loss for that specific capital gains tax event. So CGT assets can be classified into 3 different categories: the collectibles, personal use assets, and other assets. The special CGT rules, for example, exemptions that apply to collectibles and personal use assets, which hence why it's important to first work out what category it would fall under, if it falls into any at all. Exempt assets include cars, motorcycles, and bravery awards. Collectibles acquired for $500 or less. Personal assets acquired for $10,000 or less. In addition, CGT assets are used to produce exempt income, like an asset used by a non-profit hospital would be exempt to CGT. In some cases, CGT is made non-applicable to a capital gain because there are provisions in the tax law that apply. So we call these anti-overlap provisions. So if it conflicts with another tax law, there's special provisions for that. There's also a main residence exemption. So if you live in your own house and you sell that house and you make any sort of gain, the capital gains tax will not apply. Conversely, the capital losses are also disregarded. So whether or not it's tax effective to live in your own home is up to debate. So here's how you calculate the capital gain or loss. Some CGT events do have a specific formula, but this is 9 times out of 10. This is how it's calculated. There's capital proceeds. It's what you sold it for, less the cost base. Now the cost base is a metric of how much paid for the asset, including incidental costs, which I'll go over very shortly. The reduced cost base is another metric that the ATO uses to try and take away some of the costs, in an attempt to not give you a huge amount of losses. So things like land, some things like land improvements and certain holding costs are disregarded when you make a loss, and that's that makes up a figure called the reduced cost base. So here's some requirements by the ATO. So they include the asset purchase and acquisition costs. So, and I believe that there's an education package that most of you have purchased through Skyways. This would be classified as an incidental expenditure, in my view. The fees, transaction fees incurred in sending the funds overseas to purchase the package would be included in the cost of the asset. and financial advice provided by an Australian financial services provider. That would include that in the cost, but not the reduced cost base. There's borrowing expenses, such as interest on loans taken out to purchase a package, and any associated fees with that. So, in practical terms, here's a few things that you can do to keep records that would be sufficient. So receipts of the education package fees. So when you send the money over, you'll need to work out how much you paid for everything, for starters. Exchange records, when it goes back into Australian dollar, exchange rate at the time of purchase. So that's to work out the US dollar conversion or rubles conversion from when you exchange it back into Australian dollars, so that it's because the tax returns are always lodged in Australian dollar, not in any other currency. And I assume the same would be around the world. So by not keeping accurate records, you're at risk of paying more tax if an audit was to occur. And it does happen. Don't think that you're immune to an audit by not keeping records. ATO knows quite a significant amount of, they have a significant amount of information, particularly with new laws that they're introducing to require cryptocurrency markets to hand over swathes of information about you. If at the audit stage, they can issue a default assessment, which is the most, it's not a very good result to get. It'll usually result in a terrible tax scenario, and they'll also add a administrative penalty on top of that, ranging from 25% to 100%. So whether they think it's deliberate or whether it was accidental or fraudulent. So there's 3 different levels of penalty they can add. So here's a practical example that I've made up. So assuming there's a high income earner who's making over 180,000 a year. So this is an individual taxpayer who's on 45% tax rate plus the 2% Medicare levy. So the assumption is $100,000 profit, right? And for everyone here, it wouldn't be $100,000 profit. It'll be some random odd figure, like, and just take it of simplicity, just to 100 grand. So there's a 50% discount for an individual. So on the $100,000, you get $50,000 off. So now you're left with a net capital gain of $50,000. So you only pay tax on the $50,000, not on the 100, assuming you've held for more than 12 months. So the marginal tax payable on the net capital gain is 23.5%, which works out to be 23,500. So it's that's the absolute worst case scenario that you can pay tax in. Absolute worst, and that's assuming that you're very high income as it is already. So here's another practical example based on a $10,000 income. A lot of pensioners would probably be around the 20 grand income, around that region. So taxable income before capital gains, 10 grand, make the same amount, 100 grand, but you get the 50% discount. So now your net capital gain is 50 grand still, and add that onto your taxable income. So for a total of 60,000 would equate normally to a tax payable of 11,167. However, the government gives you these things called tax offsets because you're on a lower income. They don't give these to higher income people. And those tax offsets there are listed as negative figures, $1,080 and $100 for the low and middle income tax offset and the low income tax offset respectively. So in this scenario, the effective tax rate is only 9.99% on the $100,000 that you have paid. So it's not a erroneous tax. I think it's, in my view, it's quite reasonable. So that any tax agent fees incurred are deductible regardless if they're capital in nature. So if you set up companies and set up trusts and things, even if you do that and pay a tax agent to do it, it is still deductible out, as a direct tax deduction rather than as a capital receipt or loss. So Michelle wanted me to go into how the education of it all works. I think there's some disputes in SWIG as to how the whole education segment of it works. So I'll go into that very briefly. In Australia, all tax agents and accountants and financial advisors must study approved training by the industry body. The set hours required each year to keep their qualification current, known as CPD hours. Tertiary qualifications are required in order to provide comprehensive advice. So, for example, going to university, that would be a tertiary qualification. Work experience is always a mandate across any financial services or tax agent license. And why do they do this? Well, the idea is to promote integrity and reliability into our tax and financial services system. In addition, there's a professional indemnity insurance. So if they don't perform a good service, you can make a claim against their professional indemnity insurance if they had failed their professional obligations to you. In addition, any unapproved advisors diminish our tax and financial services system, creating a distrust for individuals, affecting the entire industry. Here's an example of some CPD hours on Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. These are some courses that anyone can do. not just accountants. Anyone can do these courses, and they're quite useful if you're in that space. So paying tax, so there's many tax planning systems that can be implemented to reduce tax. This is known as tax planning. There's a very grey line between tax avoidance and tax evasion. But tax avoidance is legal and you can do it. Tax evasion is illegal and is deliberate. So, for example, if you don't declare something, or you reduce the actual figures, that's tax evasion and is illegal and can end you up in jail if you get caught. So I needed to stress that only take advice from accredited professionals. I did read a post from someone in the Skyways group who stated that a trust structure is appropriate for, in their circumstances, implying that it was appropriate for others. But I wanted to elaborate that a trust structure may not be appropriate for everyone because it's quite a large amount of pitfalls to having a trust structure set up in what's known as an inter vivos trust, a living trust. Things like testamentary trusts, like after you're deceased, those sorts of things have special tax rules applied to them. That's what I say inter vivos here. So, but for 9 times out of 10, for most people, doing nothing would be the best way to go than to doing all these structures and chains and stuff. Because there's less admin, and you got huge amount of costs involved in setting up these trusts that may not have an after tax benefit at the end of the day at all. In addition, so why should you only take advice from accredited professionals? Have professional indemnity insurance. It's illegal for non-accredited professionals to give advice, and they're setting themselves up for a potential legal claim, as they're most likely acting in their own interest rather than your best interest. Now, your best interest need to be considered having regard to a whole range of things such as your age, your risk tolerance, and a few factors like that. One can argue that they were acting in your best interest because you told them that you wanted this particular product, but that may not be in your best interest because of the other factors I set out just before, which can breach the act. So if you're doing any kind of financial training, please make sure to do accredited training if you want to make a career in it. Do non-accredited training as a personal choice, and don't advise others to do any courses that is non-accredited if they're genuinely trying to get into the industry. No body in Australia will recognise these Skyways education packages that I'm aware of. I don't think anyone has recognised them. So that's just something I've add to that. There's some legal ramifications if you do give advice and you're not qualified, including fines and/or imprisonment. You can report anyone that's not qualified giving advice to the Australian Investments and Securities Commission, otherwise known as ASIC. So why should you report people? Because the person that's providing advice may not be qualified to give such advice. In addition, is most likely not covered by any professional indemnity insurance, which can cost people their life savings for incorrect advice, not having regard to their best interest as well. So does anyone have any questions?
Can I just say, everybody, let's give Brad a clap and thank you for telling us all this advice. And now's the time for you guys to ask him some questions. You've got him here. So
Yeah,
go
I got
for
a
it.
question. I got a question.
Yes.
Brad, you showed us a slide that had some training courses that you said anybody can do. Are those training courses accredited? Yeah, those ones there. Do they have any accreditation to them, or are they things that we would do just for our personal edification and education?
So these ones in particular are ones with the chartered accountants. So that they are accredited in the fact that if you're already a member of a professional body,
Oh,
they
okay.
count towards your CPD hours. So these courses may not be useful to you if you're trying to get into the industry. It's probably more if you're already in the industry, because they have, if you can see that CPD hours, 7.5 CPD hours, you're meant to do, I believe it's 40 or 60 hours a year. So by doing one of these courses, you effectively do nearly a quarter of the hours you're meant to be doing for a year.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Anybody
Richard,
else?
it's Madeline. I've got a question.
Yeah.
Brad, great presentation. Just a question. Most of us bought a cryptocurrency called CRU, and then we had to convert it to WCRU. Is that regarded as a taxable event?
So Brad, I'll just jump in there. We were charged a fee to convert them as well. So we all had to pay a fee for the conversion.
So what you're saying is you converted to CRU, and you're wondering if that conversion is a taxable event.
Well, do we then have to pay a tax depending on what you paid for the CRU in the first place? And then it was valued at probably at a certain, the W CRU was valued at a certain amount when we transferred from the CRU to WCRU. Is that then a taxable event?
No, because that's what's known as a script for script rollover, and that's because you've exchanged for an equivalent amount of units in something else like that. Because basically, from what I understand, they basically cancelled one coin and given you units in another one.
Correct.
Right. So that's there's a heap. There's actually probably about I'm sure there's about 11 different rollovers you can do. I didn't go over them in the slides, but there are rollovers there available. I would most likely think that would be covered under what's known as the script for script rollover.
Well, thank you for that,
event.
because I think that would be something that most people on this call would need to know.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything taxable there. No.
Great.
And the cost, Brad, just as a follow-up to that question, the cost of the conversion, is that a tax deduction?
So it wouldn't be tax deductible as such, but it would be factored into into the cost base of the asset, if that can be reliably measured. So if it can't be reliably measured, then how are you going to add that up as a cost?
So we should have got a receipt from that, do you think, Brad? Like the company should have issued us like an invoice or receipt or something maybe for our records? Would that have made it something we could use as a cost?
Yeah, so ideally, yeah, so you need to be able to substantiate all these claims that you make. It's a matter of having receipts, and if you've got the records to prove that there was costs involved in.
Oh, that's okay,
getting the
because
fees.
every conversion we did had a separate fee attached to each conversion.
Yeah,
But Richard, we didn't get a bit like a receipt or anything or an
Yeah,
invoice.
I've got a transaction record of it in my back office.
Yeah,
So you'd
is
be
that
able
good
to-
enough?
Yeah, it shows who it's gone to, what it was for.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, Brad would be the person to ask. But if we can demonstrate that that money was transferred to the company for the purpose of converting CRU to World CRU, surely that would be sufficient proof that was paid. Would that be right, Brad?
that's right. So when you're at the end and you've worked out the gain, that cost will be factored into consideration when you calculate the gain. It's not tax deductible directly.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else?
No, we're going to have to watch the recording to digest it all.
I know it's a lot. It
Yeah,
is a
so
lot.
Then we'll have questions in a week's time.
I've got one more if I may then, if nobody else has.
Go for it.
If it happens to be a large sum when we finally sell our WCRU, is there any way to minimise that tax?
There is. So a few things that you could do would include making contributions to a super fund. I know that you can have up to about 20 around that as your contribution limits for 2022. That would be one strategy. Whether you are if you're in the business of trading cryptocurrency, there's quite a few small business exemptions available. So for example, if you dispose of an active business asset, you can make a non-concessional contribution into your super fund up to $300,000. That would be completely tax-free. In addition to some other stuff that you can do. You could also split the income across multiple financial years. So you could sell $100,000 on 30th of June and sell $100,000 on 1st of July. That's another method you could do. Only one day apart, and you're spreading it to multiple financial years, thus paying less tax. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Let's go.
with that, what you were saying before, Brad, about the conversion of CRU to World CRU being considered a rollover, and I don't know, I can't remember the exact word used, but it was like you're replacing one with another. If we were to swap our World CRU, say when they issue tokens in, I'm just picking an example, the gold business that they're talking about raising a token for, if we were to swap our World CRU for a gold company token, would that be considered the same thing? Or because it's a different type of token, they would look at it differently?
No, they look at it all the same. So it's not the type of token makes them have a different view on it. It'll all fall under CGT, but you'll only come unstuck when you move it into Australian dollars. They won't have access to any of the back office or anything. They
And
won't
the tax treaty that they have for tax advisement, we were suggested to us that the Estonian jurisdiction actually has a tax treaty arrangement with the Australian tax office. Is that something that if our tax office here in Australia was, say they were doing an audit on me, and I showed a number of transactions through Unitex, which is under the Estonian regulatory authority, would they then apply to that authority to get a copy of my transactions through Unitex? Is that the way it works?
No, so under the tax treaty, it's more probable than not that it only covers income tax and benefits. I highly doubt that would cover. So when I say income tax, I understand that income tax also includes net capital gains. But we've got to keep in mind that even if that was true, as an Australian resident, you'd be taxed on your worldwide income. So if you went over and renounced your Australian citizenship and moved over to Estonia, you'll probably be able to get out of paying Australian tax. If you want to go down that road, probably would not recommend that though.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Richard would miss the beer, I think. He couldn't do Estonia.
Yeah, no, I'd have to get specially shipped in, which would be a tax deduction. I'd charge it against my assets.
Brad, I've got to
So that would only apply if you actually paid tax in Estonia, then you could offset that tax against any Australian tax. Is that the case, Brad?
That's correct, yes. So if you pay tax in Estonia, you can offset it.
Okay.
But one more question, if I may. There's some talk about the benefit of setting up foundations. Do you have any advice on whether that's a good idea?
The foundations.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, people talk about setting up foundations to minimise your tax, like setting up a charitable foundation.
not for profit.
Well, not for profit. The problem that you've got is it's for very hugely scrutinized, and see, it won't be any good for you because the income needs to be quarantined to within the charity for it to remain tax-free. So when it moves out of the charity to your own name, that's when you come unstuck. And not to mention that it might be borderline illegal, depending on the charity board's rules and regulations that you've got to overcome. I personally haven't heard of anyone that has done that or even been charged for it. So maybe it's possible. But I haven't looked
If you
into
wanted
it.
to donate to a charity, though, you didn't actually want to benefit from it, there would be benefits to the charity because they'd get more income that way, wouldn't they?
Yes, but a gift cannot be classified as ordinary income, which is why they don't tax it as such. Ordinary income is taxed when there's a whole range of things. The definition of income is very complex, but basically, like when you win lotto, that cannot be classified as an ordinary income because it's not ordinary income. And the same for donations for a charity. It's not ordinary income at all, which is why they don't tax it, and they can't tax it. So, was that your question? So, what would you'd have to check the regulations with the Australian Charities Commission. No, but over her lottery winnings tax. So, Tom, I assume that you mean after her lottery winnings, but the lottery winnings in Australia are not taxed.
No, I'm just sort of saying, assuming that some of the people who got into CRU very early could be benefiting by a large amount when they exit. If they decide that I can't use all that money, I want to give it to charity, would there be a benefit in setting up a foundation in that case?
Well, what benefit would there be? I mean, look, if you donate it to charity, yes, then technically yes, you'd be right. If you'd set up a foundation, yeah, I mean, you could do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But it's quite a very lengthy process. You got to have your accounts audited every year. You've got to have endorsement from the ATO, and these costs will be thousands, potentially tens of thousands of dollars every year to maintain the charity that you are running. So it's something you can do, but it's not something I would look into because it's commercially infeasible in 99 out of 100 cases. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Brad.
So, Brad, we've got a question from Liz. We have a thing called Global Unit Pay Card, right, which is a new product it's been out for a while, and it's a Visa background, like a card, but it's connected with our CRU and WCRU. And Liz's question is, should I get a Global Unit Pay Card under my business entity and withdraw funds under the business entity? So the money that comes in is coming into a business, the income would be obviously disclosed as taxable via a business. Is that a strategy like?
Or what sort of business entity is it?
Liz, do you want to just tell us what sort of business you have, or can you unmute maybe?
LLC, so it's a company.
Yeah.
So it's a corporate structure. But
Yeah.
I'm not a tax advisor in the United States, so I suggest speaking with an accountant over there. But in Australia, if you were to do the same thing, a company in Australia, it still probably wouldn't be, depending on how the card's set up. So if they allow you to pay for things directly with the card, that would probably be ideal. You could probably classify it as ordinary income if you, depending on how this card's set up, obviously. It still probably works out to be more favorable if you were to declare it in your own name and just take the payout from it. The problem arises when you move the funds into your personal or business bank account. They know about that over here anyway.
So any more questions before we close with Brad? Could everybody show some pluses in the chat to thank Brad? He's actually in the middle of exams and he's given his time for us. And it's his first webinar with Richard and myself. And so he's actually given us a lot of information to digest. And, you know, and Brad is actually only 22 for the record, everybody. So he's come a long way with his studies, and we're all very proud of him. Have you got one last bit of advice for everyone, Brad, like just sort of something general on something they can start to learn about their tax plans and what they should do?
Yeah, definitely. Plan early. Don't wait until the end of the financial year. Don't wait until the last day of June or wherever it is in your country. Start planning early and get prepared.
That's great advice, actually. Yeah, thank you so much, Brad. We are very excited that you came on today, and we really thank you for you know, giving us your time. I'm going to pause.
All right. Hopefully the things that we've just learned, when we understand what we're going to talk about now, we will have some money to spend, and therefore we need to do it correctly and figure out how to do our taxes. Thanks for that, Brad. That was a really good lead up to what we're going to talk about, because what we're going to talk about is CRU. We're going to talk about what is causing it to be suppressed at the moment, and when is it most likely for that suppression that is occurring is going to be lifted. So this is part of the Wearing This Together series of discussions, because it is going to require the entire community to actually make this work, to make things develop and grow through the entire ever-rich system and the new economic evolution of the world. But today we're going to be talking about an aspect that is specifically related to CRU. Now, I love this little slide, so I've figured out a way of putting it in. The information that Michelle and I present in a lot of these presentations is actually gotten from closed meetings, from back office news, from listening to other people's presentations. And it's a matter of collecting information, and then with that information, connect the dots. And we're going to connect dots which are going to create money for us. So the company does give out, and even what we got today from Brad is information, and the company releases an enormous amount of information. We get it on a almost day, well, it's not even almost daily. We get information from the company about the various projects they're doing, projects that have been delayed, projects that are advancing, changes in projects. All of that is information. And so it's represented in this as a dot, but our knowledge is gained when we actually connect all those dots. And if we connect the dots properly, that's where all the information that the company is supplying benefits us. So I'm going to try and connect some dots today that are relative to CRU, of what's happening with CRU. Because there's a lot of information that's out there that if we do connect the dots properly, will maximize the potential profits that we can make from CRU. So this is truly a presentation that is relevant to the people that are holding CRU, which I think for the majority of people in the program in Everich, in New, we've still got a lot of people doing that. So let's look at what I want to do. Is I just want to go through a whole lot of bits and pieces that would be considered to be information, and then once I've done that, we'll try and join the dots to sort of make sense of it, so we can see why CRU is at the price that it is now, and when is it going to change. And to do that, I just want to give a bit of a background to get a setting as to where we are and what we're doing. So we know that the new economic evolution of the world has a message to deliver. And we know that that message is that they want to get a system up and running and get a facility and a service that will provide financial literacy to 15% of the population of the world. Now, to do that, to be effective, to reach that number of people in the world, you can't do it from a nondescript, unknown, low coverage type of service. It needs to be something that is big, it needs to be a prominent high tower, and it needs to have a powerful message. And for that to happen, it means that it has to come from something that has an incredibly high public profile. Now, my way of looking at it is the message is the need for financial education. The tower that is going to put that message up high so people can see it is our community. It's the people that form the average community and that build that community. And the power of the message, the ability for that message to be covered will come from the portfolio that the company is building that'll actually prove that what they're teaching in their financial lessons actually works. Now, to do that, you can see in this that you need to have, first of all, an established foundation. And that's what the financial education, the company have really refocused their attention into the foundational aspects of the company to build a really solid financial education. And from that, they have outlaid the two sides of this tower, and they're based around CRU, the crypto unit, and around World CRU. And they have outlined, they've put into place a roadmap of how they're going to build this tower. And we can see, as we look at it and we start looking at the things that they've done, we can see how they're building that tower for it to end up being significant. And if you look at all of these things side by side and you look at this slide, you can see that these things are slowly pushing towards building up the value of both sides of this tower. But where the tower gets its strength from to be able to hold a fantastic weight is the way that it's cross-braced, how they're linked together. And that's done through UGPay and through the global unit pay system. When the two sides are linked together with this system, which is slowly coming together, once that is done, then they're going to be able to put the piece to the top of it, the thing that it's going to be. And I believe it's going to be the NDE and the creation and the need to open business accounts. Because when that occurs, that's going to produce a massive dollar value in CRU, and it's going to sustain and hold the dollar value for World CRU. And then that is going to be the big message that a lot of people in the community, that's going to be their first real interaction with the company, the NDE program and the putting of your business accounts on a blockchain so it is never can be taken from you, never be removed and taken by the authorities or anything like that. That is going to be, for a lot of people, their first significant financial interaction with the company. And so this tower and this message is incredibly important. And NDE users are going to be the big push behind holding the price of World CRU and increasing the price of CRU. And the reason is because they're the ones in the world that actually need to have both of them. There's a lot of people, and maybe I'm one of them, and we're all one of them, that we want them, we want to have them. And a lot of people, when they look at, they talk about coin market cap, there's going to be a lot of people who look at CRU and UNTB and look at these tokens, and they will want them. But people who want a business account, who want to get involved in the NDE, actually need them. And that need is the thing that makes the difference. Because let's just briefly touch on World CRU. That World CRU is going to be needed to be the underpinning of a guarantee for a loan. Business people or people are going to be able to secure a low doc type loan that is a revolving loan. And when they do that, it's something that when they see the value of it, they are not going to be selling their World CRU, which helps the company maintain the price. When these people start to use this loan, they use the World CRU to secure a loan, they finalise their loan, the World CRU is unstaked, put back in their portfolio, it's earning them a dividend, it's increasing in value. We're reading all the time how banks are becoming more and more attuned to the use of digital securities to guarantee loans. It's easier for the bank to liquidate the digital security than to holding an asset or a property. And we read all the time, we just read about it recently with the Commonwealth Bank here in Australia, various banks in America and Europe now looking at the digital token as a security to support loans. And also the fact that World CRU, you can pass it on to someone, you can transfer it with a peer-to-peer arrangement. And the company is looking at doing these things because they want to guarantee that what happened with CRU when it got affected by market forces is that it came down in price, and the company is putting a lot of measures in place. So right now, the price it's been sold in what's known as the primary market in security tokens. And in the primary market, UGPay, the company, they actually set the price. And so we've seen Andre Herato, he does his calculation where the value of the portfolio divided by circulating World CRU creates a price. Now that's great, and that's what's allowed to be done in a primary market. But when those CRU become unlocked and they're resold, they are actually sold in a secondary market. And the secondary market is a market price affected structure. So what the company don't want is they don't want to be in the primary market selling CRU for $2, whatever it is wants to be, $1, $2, rumoured to be even possibly $2.80, but find in the secondary market that they're selling for 50 cents. So the company are putting in a lot of measures that are going to hold the World CRU price. And the beautiful thing about that is that it has a secondary aspect that it actually builds the price of CRU. And those people that are looking at business accounts, it's going to change the way people look at CRU. So this change that is going to occur, this is what those people who are currently suppressing the price of CRU have been able to work out. They've actually looked beyond what's happening on Unitex right now, and they've looked at the information that the company has given us, and they've joined dots in a certain way And when we look at now how those dots join, we'll see pretty clearly why the price of CRU is held down right at the moment. So I just want to do it by the way of an example. This is 3 people, and they want to get involved in this particular example in the NDE program. That's what they want to do. Now, it could be that they just want a business account, but like I say, in this example, they are wanting to get involved with the NDE program. Now, Andre Harato actually gave us an insight into this a little while ago, and he again touched on it in a recent webinar just the other day. But I think only a very small group of people actually understood it and understood the implication of it. And so that's why we're going to spend a bit of time on this today to try and help people really come to understand, because right now we all have, there's a little bit of wriggle room left in what's happening for us to also take advantage of what's just about to happen. Now, the company requires people, if they want to get involved in the NDE program, or if they want to get their company on the blockchain, that they have to have a business account on the crypto unit blockchain. That's an absolutely mandatory part of the process. And so for us, that's information. And so in what we're talking about today, that's actually a dot. To open a business account on our blockchain, we have to buy 10,000 USDU worth of CRU. $10,000. So just really understand that point, that it's 10,000 USDU worth of CRU. You can't pay cash for it. You can't buy it in Bitcoin. You can't buy it in EOS. You can't buy it in UNTB. You can only buy it with CRU. And that's really important. And that also is a piece of information. So that's another dot in this program, in what we're looking for when we're looking for information relative to CRU. Also, that's something to remember when we look at this, is that CRU has an arbitrary price. The market dictates the price. That's information, that's a dot. So who controls the market will control the price of CRU. Information, another dot. And we also know that the market is totally unregulated with non-secure tokens. Information, that's another dot. And I'm not going to go through this all the way through this presentation. I'm just doing it for the sake of making a point as we lead into the next couple of slides. So that's 3 more dots that we've now got that is information. And so if we look at the information that the company is putting out continually about certain things, we need to look at that information and identify, and I'm changing the colors here, what is it that's relative to CRU and how is that going to affect the price? So we look at that information, then we start joining dots. And as we join those dots, we see how all of these things come together and are going to push the price of CRU up. So if you look at this example and we're looking at business accounts, when I worked out this slide, the current price of CRU at that stage was 0.015182, which means each of those people would have to buy 658,675 CRU to be able to open their business account on blockchain, which means as a combined total, that's 1.9 million CRU is going to have to be purchased. What that means, though, is that that's 1.9 million crew are going to be removed forever from circulating CRU. Because those people who buy it give that purchase crew that they've just bought, they give it straight away to the crypto unit blockchain, to the company, to be able to open their business account. So these people, they're going to own crew for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, they have no interest in crew whatsoever. They don't want to read about white papers. They don't want anything to do with it, because crew is purely a step in the process that they have to go through to get their hands on World Crew. If the company said to them, go and buy $10,000 worth of McDonald's or canned beans, they would go and do it. They don't want to own crew. They don't want to hold crew. They don't even want to understand it. All they know is that they have to buy $10,000 of USD worth of something called crew, and they hand it over to the blockchain operators to get their business accounts open. So what is it that these people who are buying crew now, what is it that they can see that members of the community who are selling their crew right now don't see? Now, I've put little asterisks against on these slides. These slides with the asterisk on them. If all you remember from this presentation is these next few slides, then you will make a bucket load of money if you understand it and follow it, and then we can use Brad's tax principles to save most of it for ourselves. But this is what they see that the rest of us who are selling crew aren't seeing. So, okay, let's just keep going. What are the dots that they have joined? Okay, I've just got to clear that. What these people see is people, and this is really important. So what these people see is people wanting to involve themselves in having a business account, whether it's the NDE program they want to get involved in, or they just want to open a business account so their records can be secured on blockchain, is that they have to buy $10,000 worth, 10,000 USD worth of crew, which means the crew price is irrelevant. The price per crew has absolutely, it is totally of zero interest to them, because they only have to buy 10,000 USD worth of it. So as an example, if the price of one crew was actually 10,000 US dollars, all they would have to do is buy one. If the price of crew is $1, one USDU, then they've got to buy 10,000. It's irrelevant to them what the price is. And so whatever the price of crew will become, whatever it is, all they ever have to do, if they set their accounts up before the 1st of January, they only have to buy $10,000 worth of crew. If they set it up before the 1st of April, they only have to buy $25,000 worth of crew. And if it sets up after that, they'll have to pay $35,000. As the available crew is limited, and this is where it's getting right down to the nitty-gritty, says the available crew is limited, but the potential number of people who will want to hold a business account on blockchain for permanency of record keeping is unlimited. There will be so many of those people who will see the value of the NDE guarantee program and all of its values for the ease of the bank-friendly nature of it, the simplicity of it, the speed of it. And then there's going to be the other group of people who just want to have their records kept in a way that can never be removed. And what that is going to create is the law of supply and demand will absolutely take effect. So the more CRU these people can buy now, the more CRU they are going to be able to sell to business account applicants later. So what the thinking of these people is that they know that these people who want business accounts, their only thought is that they have to buy 10,000 USD worth of this thing called CRU. And therefore the price that they pay for it is absolutely irrelevant. They're going to own it for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, however long it takes to press some buttons to set up their account, because it's not their end game. Their end game is to get themselves an account on blockchain that allows them to either pursue the NDE program or to pursue the creation of a token for themselves, or pursue the secure recording and record keeping of their business. If you take a look, and this is what these people have been able to work out, if you look at this chart, look at this top line, for $76, someone right now at this price structure that was set would be able to buy 5,000 CRU. If they sell it for $1, they're going to get $5,000 for it, which represents a $6,500% increase in their return. If, as it's rumoured, that with the revaluation of the portfolio, World CRU could list in February at $2.80, and they were to sell their CRU for that price, then you're looking at 18,000% increase. Now, if these people can hold the price of CRU down, they can buy an enormous volume of CRU right now, a staggering amount of CRU right now, that when they sell it, even if you just look at those examples that I've posted there, there's a 6,500% potential profit to be made in a very, very, very short period of time. Their thinking is, and it absolutely is, and you can see this by the way the exchange has been manipulated over the last few months, the more CRU I can buy now for 1 cent, the more I will have to sell later at a huge profit. And the brilliance of what makes that work is because the person buying it isn't going to care about the price he pays, because he's not having to buy 10,000 CRU. If he had to buy 10,000 CRU, then the price of CRU becomes critical to that selling. But he's not, he has to buy $10,000, 10,000 USDU worth of CRU. And like I said before, it doesn't matter if CRU was $10,000 each. It just means he has to buy one. It's irrelevant to the person wanting to set up their business account what the price of CRU is, because he has to buy 10,000 US dollars worth or USDU worth of it. And this is what these people who are holding the price of CRU down on the market right now in the exchange, this is what they've figured out. And they're buying up as much CRU as they can at the extremely low price. So later on, when the NDE rolls out, they're going to be able to do it. So my suggestion, I'm not, big word suggestion there. This is not advice. Please understand, I am not giving you financial advice. I am just putting a suggestion, is that go crazy, and I'm doing it. Buy as many CRU as you can at this price and stake it for UNTB for now. At least you're earning something on it. But watch the news, watch the information that is coming out from the company about the NDE, about the UGAIN project, about people being able to set up their business accounts. Because once that starts to roll out, once that starts to happen, you want to unstake your CRU and get it onto Unitex at a really good price. And we know, because of the price increase in structure, of what's going to happen on the 1st of January, what's going to happen on the 1st of April. We know that that rollout has got to be in full swing before the 1st of January, which what that means for us is that the profit-taking ability for us has a very limited waiting time. It has between now and January the 1st. We can start reaping the profits of these and start to sell CRU at a price that suits us, because the person buying it doesn't care the price he's paying. It's just not relevant to them. And that should make holding on to CRU, that should put a huge smile on people's faces and put a huge thought into our heads of not selling your CRU. It's just you're shorting yourself an opportunity that could be realised within. It's going to start within weeks and grow very, very quickly as people see that it's going to go. If there's a person looking at putting their business on blockchain, we know the EOS system is the lowest cost system to do it. It's a very, very secure system, and we're a fork off the EOS system. We know that the company have said that they will hold in escrow any person who buys World CRU. They will hold it and release it to them on the 2nd of February, but they can pay today's price for it, not the price that it's going to be once the CRU people release their review of the portfolio. So there's going to be a phenomenal interest in people wanting to do things before the 1st of January. Now, even if the company extended to the middle of January, whatever it is, there's going to be an enormous amount of interest and a very short period of waiting time for us to attract those people who want a business account. So just in the last few slides before I wrap this up, how do we identify when short selling, the manipulation of the exchange is starting to occur? We just need to understand a little bit about how the exchange works. So when you're looking at the exchange, all the red numbers, they're the price that people are prepared to sell their CRU for. All the green numbers are the price that people are prepared to buy for. The difference in between is what's called the spread. And that's something to be watching and to be understanding, because what will happen, a short seller actually wants to create a price to go down. Now, short sellers create downward movements when they're wanting to short a stock. They will point out failings in the company. They will point out failings in the particular thing that they want to short. Now, we had an example of that where Mr. Elon Musk, he shorted Bitcoin by saying they weren't going to use it anymore because it was devastating to the environment and all this sort of stuff. And we all saw the price of Bitcoin come down. So someone wanting to short something will point out the failings in the company, or if something occurs that's negative, they don't turn that around and change people's attitudes to it. They allow it to run. They'll even start rumors, start negative stories. They will do something to create the stock beginning to drop, or they will initiate a sell-off that creates, for no apparent reason, a sudden selling panic. So a short selling whale will initiate the shorting of CRU, usually by beginning, in our case, usually by beginning a sell-off. And what they will do is they will sell their CRU at the highest green price, and they will do it in a big volume. So all of a sudden they start to open up the spread. And as the spread opens and people holding CRU see that they're no longer getting the price that they wanted for it, the natural tendency, unfortunately, for people is to panic. They don't know, suddenly something's happening. They don't know why the price is going down. And so they chase the price down. And once this downward chase begins, a short seller pulls out of the market, just stops doing it. He's initiated, they've started it. They then sit to one side and watch the market crash. And they let it go down, they let it go down, and they only come back into the market once that selling spree has stopped and it's stabilized. Then with the money that they've earned from selling their CRU at the higher price, they come back in and they buy up the CRU at the now much lower, cheaper price. And they continue, and we have seen this over the last few months, over and over and over and over. And we watch this occurring, we wonder why it's occurring. And each time this cycle goes around, these people who are accumulating CRU, getting ready to sell it when the time is right, accumulate hundreds of thousands of CRU, and probably now in the millions of CRU. And when they see, it's the old magician, the magician who says, look over here, watch this. And then while everybody's watching this, they're doing something over here that you're not looking at. And what these people have been doing over the months, and you can see it when you understand it, that first of all, they blamed, who got blamed? It was illiterate financial people that are selling their CRU. How silly are they? And then it was big people who got CRU for nothing. How ignorant are they? And the focus was always on the silly people selling. And this is where, and we've heard this over and over and over, but while people were focusing on those people, they weren't looking at who are all the buyers. Because you can't have a seller if you haven't got a buyer. But if we're focusing people's attention on those silly people who are selling, we're not looking at the people who are buying. And so it's been a very clever manipulation of the market that has kept the price of CRU down. And the people who are doing it for a reason. Just remember when you're looking at this, that the short sellers, they're stockpiling CRU so they can sell it later to those who want a business account, and they're going to sell it at a massive profit, because the people who are going to need to buy CRU to get their business account set up aren't fussed about the price of CRU, because they only have to buy 10,000 USDU worth of it, whether that's one, whether it's 10, whether it's 10,000, whether it's 20,000. it doesn't matter to them because they only have to buy 10,000 USD worth of it. So as we wrap this up, how do you and I counter what is going on with the suppression of the price of crude? Is simply, and it's a real simple solution, is you simply don't follow the price down. Join the dots, look at the information that the company have presented to us, join the dots. Now, I 100% firmly believe that the price of crude is going to go up, and it's going to go up big time as people start to want to get their business accounts and they have to buy crude to get it. So there's just no way known I'm going to chase the price down. I just won't, because I know it has to come up, and the people who are controlling, the people who hold the bulk of crude, they are going to start to put it on the market, and it's got to go very soon, because the price of a business account is going to go up on the 1st of January. So it has to be very, very imminently close to begin to happen. So this is what I'm really encouraging people in this presentation to do, is to look at the information that is coming out from the company. There's a ton of it coming out, and join the dots. Join the dots. The dots are information, and how you join them is how you get knowledge. There's the information. It's out there. And if you join the dots correctly, you'll make a lot of money, and you'll make sense of what is happening in the community, particularly with the price of crude right now. So if we just look forward to a few little things that are coming up, and these are dots that I think we can be joining together to help create this understanding of what's going to happen in the price of crude. We know that there's going to be massive advertising soon about world crude. We know that the CRU Global Group are going to be revaluing and adding new assets into the portfolio. Possibly that's been suggested that it's going to be in December. We know that world crude is set for a recommencement in February, and by that time, the coin market cap listing will be in and be effective. We know, I know for a fact, because I've actually had the opportunity to look at a couple of them. We know new exchanges are going to be added to the company, program. We also know, if we've been listening to things that have been told, that there are new jurisdictions being opened up for security tokens. And it's possible that the company may shift Unitex to those jurisdictions to allow more people to participate in the program. We know that there are more and more banks looking at digital assets to secure loans to, which is going to be a great boost for the NDE program. And we know that World Crude is going to be soon rated. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission, they give World Crude an effective status. That's all that they give them. It's then organisations like Moody's or Standard & Poor's and these rating agencies, they're the two probably the most popular ones. They look at the company, they look at the structure, they look at the portfolio, they look at the balance, they look at the plans of the company, the history of the people involved, and they actually put a rating. You know, is it A rating? Is it AA, AAA? Is it B, C? Whatever it is, they're the people who put a rating on World Crude, and all of this is going to be happening over the next few months. So we need to be looking at this information, and like I say, we need to understand how to join those dots so we get the knowledge that will help us make the right decisions and maximise our profits for our crew that we hold. So Michelle, with that, that's me done and dusted.
Thank you,
I will-
Richard. That was could everyone give Richard a big clap and thank you.
I will
Show
hand
some
back-
love in the chat. That'd be wonderful.
I
How
will
cool. So
hand
we're going to
back-
open up for questions and answers now. So
Yep.
thank you, Richard. That was awesome. That was a really good insight to sort of to look at it. And I think I'm going to start making an effort to buy a pile every week as well. And
Richard, could I ask the first question, if you don't mind? It's
go for it, Sue.
on that same meeting when Andre announced that, he also announced the UNTBs will also be having a use. You haven't mentioned anything about that.
No, sorry, I did make a point, and I wasn't ignoring UNTB, but I did make a point that this presentation was about CRU.
Yeah.
Absolutely, to create a token, you're going to have to use it. So the same principle can be applied to UNTB. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I'm not dismissing UNTB. It's just that I wanted to keep this one specific to CRU.
Cool. That's good. Now, when Andre announced it, I actually thought, gee, okay, why would companies wanting to be coming in to buy the 10,000 or more cost of it? Could you give some of your ideas as to what companies would be wanting to come in?
I don't even think that it can be very small businesses that it's just any. We do know that putting your details and your records on blockchain is a it's a permanent record. Nobody can talk about it. And Andre talks about in his presentation, he talked about, you know, governments coming in and seizing your information and stuff like that. But I think that's an extreme example of why you would put it on blockchain. I think there's a lot of people like to have their records and will see the advantage of having their business records on a blockchain. So they've got a permanent record. They've got, and the permanency of your records is going to become a truly important thing when, you know, we used to like to establish goodwill in a business. If you're going to sell your business, one of the aspects of selling your business is what's its goodwill value. Now, if you've got permanent, really good records to establish that, you're going to be able to demonstrate and prove the goodwill of a company if ever you're coming to sell it. The NDE program, that to me is, I used to run a building company. One of the crippling things in running a building company was oftentimes you would have to outlay an enormous amount of money to get a project started, and then you would get progress payments as you went through the building. To have something like, and oftentimes you would have to go and get a loan to fund the beginning of a project. So there was a whole lot of process. Well, for me, when I look at that, to have something like World CRU, where I can transfer it to a bank, they want to take it because it's easier for them to take a digital token than taking a second mortgage on my house. Where they can take it, I can start my project, get my money, pay the loan off, take the World CRU back into my keeping. It's going up in value. I'm earning dividends from it. It's an incredibly flexible security guarantee. That's a really, really big plus for businesses. And if we've got businesses that are coming out of this awful pandemic where they don't have maybe a track record, a financial track record that they might like to have to secure a loan, if they can secure a loan based on having X number of world crew, and they can revolve that loan around continually, that's a really, really big plus. And that's a business that's your local bakery to a multi-million dollar or a, you know, a really big national company. Having that capacity to affect a loan so simply is really, really important. So there's a couple of really good things that if the NDE program and UGAIN can get that message out to business people and they look at it and see it, I just can't see how it won't be a successful process of releasing to the world.
Okay, so NDE is going to be based on having world crew more than crew, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can't get your world crew through the NDE program unless you have a blockchain business account. So you have to have bought that 10,000 USD worth of crew to get a blockchain account. Now the company is doing this because they're going to suck up so much crew is going to be removed from the circulating supply, because when it goes to a blockchain company, they're simply going to sit on it. When the cheaper conversion times come up, they're going to be converting it for nothing because they're the ones that are charging the fee to do the conversion. So if the company has managed to bring the price of crew up to be equal to the price of world crew, then the only fee that's going to be charged is going to be the conversion fee, that 1% conversion fee, which is what the blockchain company earn. So they're going to be charging themselves a fee, which they'll just reimburse back again. So they're going to be an organisation that is going to be able to do the conversions for nothing. And then they will own, the blockchain, the crypto unit company that owns the blockchain will become massive owners of world crew in their own right, which is a tremendous business strategy that the crypto unit blockchain company earns dividends and has world crew as an increasing value. And they're going to get it by simply taking all of the crew out of the marketplace, by having people buy their business account by having to buy it with crew.
Yes. So a great strategy would be talk to businesses now, suggesting to them to buy the crew now, to have it ready, or have $10,000 worth of it ready to put a business onto the blockchain.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about the strategy, Sue, is that what we will present to a business is, if you see the advantage of having your records on blockchain, so you've got a permanent record for various reasons that we can go through and outline, or if you see the advantage of having this capacity to have a revolving line of credit guaranteed by world crew, the thing that you need to do is buy your business account before the 1st of January, because on the 1st of January, it's going to cost you 25,000 crew to do it. Right now, you can get it for 10,000. Right now, you can buy world crew and they will hold it for you and release it to you in February. You get the buying price today instead of the buying price in February. So
who's they? You know who they is?
They is UGPay. The company will hold the crew the world crew that people buy in an escrow account, guaranteeing them that it will be released to them as will CRU when the company opens things up in February. So they can buy it now for $1 for something that probably in February, if the valuation from CRU comes in the way it's suggested it's going to be, will probably CRU will be, World CRU will be selling at $2.80, $2 to $2.80.
So if a
there's-
company has basically 20,000 US dollars, then they go in and buy the USDUs on Unitex, get the getting them $10,000 worth of CRU.
Yep.
Yes. Hold them, or like go and get if the CRU goes up fairly quickly in the next month or so, they could hold them until just before the 1st of January. Put their how's the company going to know that it's $10,000 worth of USDU they've done if they've bought the CRU early for a cent?
Well, when they go to set up their business account,
Yeah.
they will have to transfer that. They will have to buy that in CRU. So it's going to be the price of like they're going to they've got to buy it in USDU.
Yes.
Okay, so they're actually buying $10,000, 10,000 USDU worth of CRU.
Yep.
Okay, so they will have in their back office, by the time they want to set up their business, they will have converted CRU to USDU and they will have $10,000.
So they can buy that now at a cent, whatever it is 1.3 cent, point
Whatever, yeah.
3. Buy it now, keep it until it goes up, but before the 1st of January, they change it back to USDUs.
No, see, that's if you were buying CRU, but you're buying $10,000 worth of you've got to have 10,000 USDU in your account. So the price of CRU is irrelevant to the equation.
I got that, but if they make a profit on it, so if they bought them now at the cent, and then in a month's time they're worth $1, they sold enough to get
2,000
USDU back.
But that's what we all should be doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm buying now as many CRU as I can put my hands on, because I know that sometime before the end of December, or even if I don't need to sell, I wait till we go between that period where it's going to go up on the 1st of April. I can hold my CRU. I don't need to sell it, but I can sell my CRU between February, March and April. It might be worth $3 or $4 by then, because the price is irrelevant to the purchase of 35,000 USDU.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of what the company is doing, that you can buy $10,000 worth of CRU today and you'll buy whatever that figure was, 380,000. You'll get 380,000 CRU. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm saying, you know what, if I go buy $1,000 worth of CRU today, that might return, I might get 88,000 CRU for that.
Mm-hmm.
I sit on it for 6 weeks and I sell it for $1, I'm going to get $88,000 for it.
Okay. That company that's wanting to come in to get its account needs to have the USDU sitting in Unitex?
Yes, yeah, they've got to have it. Well, they're going to actually have to transfer it from Unitex. You know how you got to pay X number of UNTB to open an account? Somewhere along the line, absolutely what you said is correct. They are going to have 10,000 USDU sitting in Unitex, where they either transfer it from Unitex to, and we'll get told how that occurs. It'll go from Unitex to the crypto unit blockchain company, with the reference being in the MIMO part, opening of account for ABC company. and then ABC company will get their business account.
Okay. So ABC company has 20,000 US dollars sitting around. They get 10,000 into Unitex, buys some CRU now if that's what they want to do. But before the 1st of January, they get their account set up, have it the USDUs in the Unitex, ready to transfer wherever it needs to go to. And then also through UGPay, they buy 10,000 World CRU and have it sitting in escrow for themselves to do the DE in February or whenever.
Yeah, I mean, if the moment a business or a person who wants a business account, the moment they actually see that I want to do this with Everich, with crypto unit blockchain, the moment they see that they want to put their business records on an EOS blockchain, then they need to buy their $10,000 of US, of CRU, for the exact reason that you said, that when they come to sell, they may sell theirs and they get theirs, it's cost neutral for them, because what they've sold their CRU for in February or March offset their buying price, so they actually get it. It's a neutral cost to them. That's and that's just the person who has joined the dots, who actually understands what's going on. Now, you and I can do that. We don't have to want a business account. We can just see that people who do want one have to buy CRU. Now, if you took the extreme example, if I owned all the CRU, if I owned the lot, then that means they've got to buy it off me at the price that I set. Now, collectively, we could be that person who owns all the CRU. Collectively, we could be the holders of CRU. Now, at the moment, there is a person or a group of persons who have been buying CRU progressively for months. And you can see that by every time the price got up around the 1.8 cents, it crashed and it came down. And so there's been an absolute, normally a stock would go up in price every time there's a positive release of information. The price would be going up and up and up and up and up. What's been happening on Unitex is, even though we have had some really positive released information coming out, the price has never gone up, which means there's an effort, a concerted effort being done to crash it, to keep it down. So if you look behind that activity, you say, okay, what is the advantage in keeping the price down right now? The advantage right now in keeping the price down is you get to buy so many more of these suckers that when the time comes right, you get to put these on the market for $1.50, $2. You can put on whatever price you want to put on, because it's irrelevant to the person buying it, because they only have to buy, they've got to buy 10,000 USDU worth of it. Whether it's one that was worth 10,000 USDU, or whether it's 10,000 because they're only worth $1. It's irrelevant to the person buying them, because he only has to buy 10,000 USDU worth of them.
Yeah.
But it is very relevant, super relevant, to the person selling that person their CRU. You know, it's really relevant to me. Do I want to sell them CRU at 2 cents, or do I want to sell them CRU at $2? It impacts my life massively. It doesn't change the person buying. All it's going to change for him is how many CRU he purchases.
Can you buy the World CRU on UGPay now? I haven't been following that. Can you buy? Can they be bought now and put in escrow?
Yeah, they can, but you've got to do it through that business account. That's the only way it can be done.
Oh, so you have to have that business account up and ready.
Yeah,
Okay.
you've got to have all of that process. Has got to be in place.
And for them to be able to buy the World Crew at $1, is there a cut-off date for that to happen? Is it the February date?
No, that'll be the company mandate the price. Now, when the CRU Global revalues the portfolio in December, it's suggested that's going to be done in December.
Yeah.
Then once that comes out, then the company will redefine the price of World Crew. And Andre Herrato's talked about that, like if that revaluation comes back at $60 billion or whatever, they've tossed around could be, it would mean the price of World Crew will be selling at $2.80. Now, it depends on when he sets that. He might say up until the 2nd of February, the price of World Crew will be $1. But on the 2nd of February, it's going to be $2.80. Or depending on, it's going to depend on what the CRU valuation puts on the portfolio. But whatever it's going to be, we know that the dollar value was on an 11 billion portfolio, and we know that it's at least going to double. Because of the businesses that they're adding into the portfolio that weren't valued when the $11 billion figure was put on the portfolio. They're now adding a whole heap of new businesses that weren't valued the first time round. So it's going to jump that portfolio price through the roof, which will reflect in the World Crew price being put at a higher value.
I think you mentioned 8 companies weren't included in it back in the $11 billion days.
Yeah, I've seen. I can post in our education group the preliminary CRU report on those valuations. I got a copy of it. Arman sent it to me, and we can post that so people can see what's coming. But all of this stuff, Sue, is what we're talking about and I'm not trying to be poetic about it. It's the information that the company actually is giving us, and sometimes we look at this piece of information there, we look at that piece there, we look at another piece over there, and we don't connect it. But someone has connected it months ago and are going to become extremely wealthy people when this all starts to roll out. Extremely wealthy. And if you're going to make between 6,000% on your money to 18,000, 20,000%, you're going to be prepared to sit on something for 6 months. It's not going to, it's not going to, you're not going to be phased if you have to sit on it for, they quite happily, all these people that have got their CRU listed on the exchange at $1, they could quite happily let all of that go and then start releasing their CRU at $1.50, at $2, at $2.25, because the person buying it doesn't care what price he's going to pay for it, because he only has to buy 10,000 USD worth of it. But it's a big difference to the bloke who owns CRU selling it.
Richard, can I just draw your attention to Millicent, because we've got a few other people that
okay. Sorry,
I'm just trying to move it along.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Millicent, over to you.
Smack me over there if I'm babbling on too long.
No, it's really, really great information that you're sharing, and definitely, eye-opening. So my question was, for someone who is not presently in Everidge, is there still, there's always a way, but what would be the way or the best way for someone that you still might want to introduce the opportunity to get some crew at this point? Because I guess they would have to open a Unitex.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just give
So-
them your Unitex referral link, get them onto Unitex, get them verified, whack some money into Unitex and start buying crew.
Okay.
You know?
Okay, so just get into Unitex, go onto the Unitex exchange.
Yeah, give them
Okay.
your referral link,
Right. Mhm.
and go nuts. Again,
Okay.
that's just a suggestion. That's not financial advice.
No, I know.
Mhm.
Okay, and great financial, no, great
Suggestions.
suggestion. Great suggestions. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
So we've got a question from Elin. How does the company assess that the business has $10,000 worth of crew? So how do they calculate the price of crew to calculate this? Because I think we've already answered this, but
Yeah, they just have to have 10,000
yeah,
USDU in the Unitex account.
yeah.
The
That's all you
price
have
of
to do.
crew is
Doesn't matter what the
relevant
price
to
of
it.
crew is.
Yeah.
So is there anybody else with questions? Gosh, we've had a long one today. I hope you guys got a lot out of it today. Like there's a lot of information to process.
I've got a question.
Go for it.
Well, as usual, this has been like, it's like it makes your head spin. Pretty amazing hearing months ago about people selling and that, and then more recently about whales coming in and doing this. And because I have no idea that how the market can be manipulated or moved in a certain direction by the buying and selling. So how do we not follow the price going down, Richard?
Okay, the way that you simply, and a lot of us have done it, we've got our world crew is listed on the exchange as a limit order. You've got a limit sell order, and you've listed it at $1, at 90 cents, at 95 cents. You simply put it on Unitex as a limit sell order, and you put the price that you're prepared to sell it at, and it simply sits there until the price comes up to the price that you've set. That's simply the way you do it.
CRU. You mean CRU, correct?
Yeah. So you simply have it on Unitex as a limit sell order, and you nominate the price that you want to sell it at.
Then your market, you list it above the spread.
Yeah, that will automatically list above the spread. The
As long
moment
as
you
they've
put,
as long as they've got that same amount of crew that they've already purchased.
say that again.
As long as they've got that amount of crew that they're putting on the limit sell order
Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah, you
that
can't.
they've already purchased
yeah,
them.
you've
Otherwise,
gotta-
they'll be in trouble.
Yeah, you've got to have the crew, because it won't accept if you don't have available crew in your Unitex account. You can't put a limit order in. You can't even put a market order in. It just rejects it.
Let's see. Okay, and I think you just answered this a moment ago. How does a person buy the WCRU now for a price of $1? Do you have to have the business account?
Yes.
Okay, and so if I want a business account, do I need a business account in order to enact and take out the NDE loan
Yes.
to be, okay. So is that $10,000 for a business account, does that go until April 1st? And then
No.
it changes to 25,000?
No, till January 1st. On January 1, it goes up to 25,000. On
Okay.
April 1, it goes up to 35,000.
Okay, so if I don't have the capital, then I can wait and let the price of my WCRU or CRU go up, and at a certain point, if I want to move into NDE, I then can liquidate my CRU or WCRU and buy and come in with a business account.
Just bear in mind that you're going to have, the probability is, and it hasn't been set in gold, in concrete yet, that you're going to have a $15,000 per year maximum of selling World CRU, unless you go do these education courses and get a higher rating. But CRU is exempt from those selling restrictions. So you need to work out, you say, okay, if I need $10,000 plus I want to buy, just pick a figure, say I want to have a $30,000 World CRU NDE guarantee. So I want $30,000 worth of World CRU. I need $10,000 to open up my business account. So I need $40,000 to set that deal up. Throw in a couple of $1,000 for fees and charges. So let's call it $45,000. You divide $44,000, your times $44,000 by the current price of CRU, and that will show you how many CRU you have to buy right now to be able to affect that when the price of CRU gets to $1. And so you just do the maths. You just sit down and do the maths, and you work out that, okay, I need 45,000 before the 31st of December. So that means I need X number of CRU. I need to go jump into the exchange now, buy that, wait till that becomes, I can sell it, and then raise the money to pay for it. So you can pay for your NDE guarantee, you can pay for your business account simply by buying the appropriate number of CRU right now at 1.5 cents. But you've got to, again, and I'm not trying to beat up a point, but I'm trying to make the point. That's what we do when we join dots. That's where we get, while we join dots, to make knowledgeable decisions.
Okay, guys, another question.
One last one. What is a low doc revolving credit?
It means a low doc means you've got to supply minimum. They don't want to know your tax returns. They don't want to know your business return. They're simply taking the asset that you're putting up as security for your loan. They don't want to even know. If you don't pay it, if you renege on the loan, you lose the security. So once you've put up a sufficient security, they don't care whether you're going to pay it or not, because if you don't, you lose your security. And banks are looking more and more and more at digital token securities because they know they can sell them instantly. Whereas a property or an asset, they've got to find a buyer, they've got to negotiate stuff. It's a long-winded process for them to recoup their money. They can just do it and away. They can sell a digital token 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh yeah, and is there talk that it could be more than $15,000 a year being able to pull out?
The 15,000 is Andre's desire, other than you take on certain educational courses and do it, but it's not been the certain regulatory issues that he's got to comply with to be able to do that. See, in Australia, we have common contract law is that if you change the conditions of a contract, both signatories have got to sign off on that. So the company turning around and saying now that you can only sell 15,000 when that wasn't the deal that was made when we bought them, the Australian Securities Investment Corporation Commission, they may have a look at that and say, hey, guess what, guys, you can't do that. That's not legal in Australia. And I'm not saying that they are looking at it, but they're the little hurdles that the company's got to get through. See, the security
Can
and
I just jump
exchange-
into there, Richard, too? Like also, like in a lot of countries with UK, America, Australia, like as Brad said earlier, there's set conditions on accredited training that a professional has to do. So a lot of these accredited courses have been, non-accredited courses have been sold as that people can set up a career in, and that's in Australia cannot happen. Like you cannot be a financial advisor in Australia. I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Australia it can't happen. So I don't know whether they're going to be able to enforce that $15,000 a year in sale. I think it's going to be a really, it's going to be next to, I think the SEC will step in for that because I haven't seen anywhere else that have been able to do that and pull that off. And also there's a conflicting interest because Andre owns the education company. So that could be looked at some massive conflicting on, you know, having the WCRU and then having to take out education packages on the education company, which is still linked to the same owner. So that could be a massive conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's what I say, that it's what he wants to see happen.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of regulatory issues that he's got to get through to make it happen. And, you know, I mean, the SEC could also see that it's a way of manipulating the price by restricting the amount of world crew that can be sold. That in effect manipulates the price, and that could be considered a big no-no. So there's a whole lot of things that they've got to still sort through, and they'll sort through them, and either it will be abandoned because it's not workable, or they
and the
will
best
find
advice you can
a way of
do
doing it.
is when in doubt, just do nothing. Just, you know, if
Right
you want
now.
to do the courses, do it for as a hobby thing. You know, you're learning a bit of information and it's good information. But if you're doing the courses to set up a career, I'd really rethink about that and go and investigate in your own countries, like what the rules are. So that's, yeah. So when in doubt, do nothing.
Yeah. Now I saw another question. Yep, I saw another question. Sorry. Can can the NDE fail? Well, probably everything is possible to fail. So you've got to look at where are the benefits, you know, who benefits, and everybody who participates at the moment in the NDE, which is the banks, which is the company and the person securing the loan, there's no losers in it. So it's one of the circumstances where you get that typical win-win scenario where if the banks are keen to now look at digital asset securities, particularly when the company gets, it's already got a genuine secured token with World Crew. When it gets a rating, that's when it really gets high prominence, when a rating company says this security is an A-rated security. Now, an A-rated security, you may be able to get a loan against an A-rated security. You might get 70% of its value you could get a loan for. But if you get a AAA rating security, you could get 100% of its value. So the rating that the company gets is going to be really important to the NDE program, but it won't stop it. It just means that if somebody wants $100,000 guarantee, and we've got a security that's got a lesser rating, where it'll only get 70% of its value assessed for the purposes of a guarantee, that means they've just got to buy more. You know, they've got to have more World Crew to get $100,000. It doesn't stop it from happening. It just means that someone has to own more World Crew. Now, if that's what happens, but then the company gets revalued years later and it goes from A to AA, well, all of a sudden you have to have less of your security to guarantee a loan. So it's something that just works for people all the way down the line.
Okay, it's now 2.5 hours nearly, Richard. We probably need to start to wrap this up. Sorry, I'm the keeper.
Can I ask another quick question?
Okay.
Quick. Did I hear you say that only a business can do a digital guarantee, or can us as individuals also do it?
I believe, and I wrote that question down because I will confirm it. The research that I've done for this presentation was on sorting out business accounts. So I don't know. So let me just ask the question directly so I can get the answer, but I will post the answer in the education group.
Thank you. Been a very interesting morning. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm glad I hope everyone got a lot out of it. And thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone, for turning up. Really, we always appreciate the support we get. We never get any airplay from any of the official groups to advertise our webinars, so I try to get it everywhere.
That's
So
okay.
we get enough people to come along.
See you later, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.